Okay, let's see. Bezos Hashem is a very Yisaitistic sugya, a very Geshmak sugya, and we'll see it's even quite a Nagaya sugya. The sugya of Reish Beis, Beis, Gimel, Vav. It's a sugya of different fruits that seem to be perhaps not edible, but have a certain edibility to them. Peels, pits. Let's see, Bez Hashem. If there's time, Bez Hashem, we'll even get to perhaps sugar. Let's see what's the sugya based on. The Shulchan Aruch over here, based on the Gemara in Brachos, brings down HaBoiser. HaBoiser, and this is based on the Taisus in Brachos. HaBoiser calls man shalahi kia l'kpula lavan. You make on it a bari priyadama, a grape, which it seems to be is not fully ripe. That's what boiser is. I'm not sure what the English translation today of boiser is. I'm sure that there is one. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but al kapanim, it would seem that the grape, which is not fully ripe, a grape which is not fully ripe, you would make on it a bari priyadama. What's the pshat that on a grape which isn't fully ripe, you make a bari priyadama? L'chayr grows on a tree which has a din, at least a vine which has a din of a tree. What's the pshat that on such a thing you make a bari priyadama? So that already is something that we know about. Not everything that grows on a tree is a bari priyadama. We see in the sugya of tzlaf in Sivav that you have things that taka grow on a tree, and afal pikein, parts of them are bari priyadama. They have yoinim, the kafrisim, the whole sugya over there. What part of the caper bush is an adama? What part is an eitz? But you see, you can have things on a tree, and it's not going to be a bari priyadama. But over there, that's because of the svara of leinata adaiti the hachi. As we find already, you can have something growing on a tree that we see doesn't have the chashivas of having grown on the tree, because there, like slaf, for example, you have certain parts of this slaf bush which wasn't the purpose of why the person grows the slaf bush. The leaves are not the iker tachlis, the berries weren't the iker tachlis, and therefore we can't say that's the pre-ha'etz. We say it's a bari priyadama. Here, there's a different chiddush. Like us, the chiddush is that even though the grape is the purpose why you planted this vine, you planted it for the purpose of grapes. But since it didn't come to its climax, it didn't come to the purpose of a grape, which is to be a grape. So therefore, it doesn't have that chashivas of a grape. It's a bari priyadama. The maisa, the mitzias is that today they have certain times that even on we came out. I've never seen boiser. I'm not sure if the oilim has seen boiser. I've never seen boiser. But the Maisa, the Shevet Levi discusses that there could be today sometimes that a person, he could buy a regular cluster of grapes. This is the Shevet Levi, is in Chelik Yud, Simin Mem Zayin, Ois Beis. He says sometimes you could buy a cluster of grapes, and on this cluster of grapes, you could find that there's one grape, or two grapes, or a few grapes that are small and have not yet reached their fruition. They haven't come to their proper giddel. The chayra, what bracha would a person make on that grape? He has a cluster of grapes, all of them are bari priyadama, and then he has one little grape or two little grapes, and the little small ones, everyone knows those little grapes, and they certainly are not the same size and not the same giddel. So one would think that that's baiser, and he would make on it a bari priyadama. The Shevet Levi writes, he says, Asher shoel binyan eshkol anovim, that have these little ones on it. He says, pashit, it's not shayich as far as a baiser. L'mroiv pamim, he explains that that's not considered boiser. That's the derech that the grapes, sometimes they have certain grapes that didn't quite make it, but that's the final giddel of this grape. Boiser was a grape that didn't quite make it. That's a difference. If you take the cluster of grapes before it ripened, that's boiser, because this was something that could have ripened and did not. Mashenke, when you have these little mini grapes, obviously it got blocked by a leaf or it had some type of a problem. And those grapes are not a chesaron in the ripeness. They're not a chesaron in their, there might be a chesaron in their size, but they're not a chesaron in their giddel. They have come to their climax. Mashenke, boiser is a type of a grape which, if it would have been left, it would have gotten more. And that's the Shevet Levi. That's what's a Bari Pri Adama. Mashen Kain, the grape that just is on that vine, which just wasn't such a great grape. Says the Shevet Levi, that's going to be a Bari Pri Eitz. And that's not going to be a Chasar. That's Pachas Yaiser. The Etzim case of Boiser. The Shaila, the Avi Shaila is Maishna that from an apple. So very Gshmaka Svar in the Levush. Maishna that and an apple, that the whole sig over here, we're going to see that when it comes to other fruits, it's only by Boiser that we say Kozman Shalegia Lekpula Lavan, which is a certain size. But once it hits Pula Lavan, you make a Bari Priya Eitz. But Shar Kala Ilan are all different. Maishna Shar Kala Ilan. What's the difference between all the other Ilanis? One moment, Rabbi, I just want to get a hot drink. Sorry, that'll be 10 seconds. Two of them, please. Hot water. Thank you. Sorry, Rabbi Isai. What's the difference, says the Lavush, between apples, pears, everything, and the grape? We know when it comes to an apple and a pear, we're going to see all types of shitas over here. When at what exactly is the shlav? Once it comes out, it's a much less shlav, it's a much less stage than boiser. Boiser is going to be something much bigger. Mashenkin, when it comes to an apple, already once it's edible and whatever, that's already going to be enough for us to make a bright priyates. What's the difference? What's the difference between an apple and a grape? So the Lavush very, very clearly explains this, and so the Aruch HaShulchan, the same idea. They explain our region lashon of the Lavush. Calls manchla igia lekpula lava nafal picha roy lachila kevam she'ena ikra pri ein ikra priya gofen elakishroy lasas yayin. He says a beautiful svara. What's the purpose of a grape? What's the reason why the helik bashafin grapes? Avada, the ikra purpose of a grape is that you should be able to make wine. Boiser, says Lavush, is not something that if you squeeze you'll get wine. So therefore, the ikar product of the tree is a grape that can produce wine. So therefore, boiser, which is a product of the tree that doesn't produce wine, that's not called a grape. That's not the pri ha'etz. Mashen came when it comes to all other fruits. The ikar pri of the eitz is the apple. Berega, it's an edible apple, albeit that it's a very small apple. But once just plain water. Oh, yeah, sorry, just plain. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Albeit it's a very, very small apple, but once it's an edible apple, so then that's already enough that it has the shame of the priya eitz. So the Aruch HaShulchan. Time shadav meisha novim ikrin hein lasas yayin and ken kol zman shalei igil l'shir zeh ein roy lasas yayin ve'ein berchos haneitz eladama kishar priya dama the bottle shema novim me'aleim. Beautiful svara. That the Seder Dover is that if I have something, if I have something that the purpose of it is to make wine, so then the tree is only a common that it can make wine. Boiser can't make wine. Mashenkein, if the purpose of the tree is to have an apple, once it's an edible apple, that's already enough. What's that shlav? We'll see in a moment. All the different shitas in the Shulchan Aruch and the Gra. So that's the first shaila. The second shaila you have to ask over here on Boiser is a shaila in Shulchan Aruch. And I know that the Olam is learning the sugya, so I decided to go a little bit more into it. There's a big pella. In Sifyud Beis, in Shulchan Aruch, it says that all peiros, if you're able to eat them raw or cooked, you make a bari priya eitz. But if it's a derech to eat them only cooked, and you ate them when they're raw, so then you make a shahakal. And when they're cooked, you make a bari priya eitz. But you see over here, l'chayra, that when you have something that's not the derech of how people eat it, so then what bracha do I make on it? I don't make it's because it hasn't come to its fruition. I don't make a bari priya eitz. If I have a fruit, that the derech is to eat it when it's cooked. So then when I eat it in its raw stage, what bracha do I make on it? I make a shahakal because you didn't eat it in its fruition. You didn't eat it in its proper stage. So Frektik Lakasha and Bemis the Bir Locha Frektik Kasha, that l'chayra, this is against the whole Sif Beis, everything that we're learning over here. In Sif Beis, we're learning that when you have either Boiser or the others, so it's either going to be a Bari Pri Adama, or it's going to be a Bari Pri Adama when it comes to Boiser, or it's going to be a Bari Pri Adama if it hasn't yet reached the shlav of the size of a normal apple. L'chayra, why should it be a Bari Pri Adama? It should be a shahakal. At Kamad, you're eating the fruit in a stage which isn't the derech of how you eat it. Bais is not the derech of how you eat it. That bais is not the daita da'achi. That's not the way you eat it. So kamei that if I have a a vegetable that the derech to eat that vegetable is cooked, when you eat that vegetable when it's raw, you make a shackle. Assuming it's edible. If it's inedible, you don't make any bracha. The Shulchan Aruch says. He says if you have something it's totally inedible, you're not going to make any bracha. Okay, but let's say you have a potato. So potato, we'll see. I don't know if you make a bracha on it if you eat it raw. But let's say you have some type of a fruit that you only eat cooked, and you don't eat it when it's raw. And then the halacha is when you eat it raw, that's shackle. So my shna, a baiser. A baiser is something that a person doesn't eat in the stage of baiser. So why is it that we say that you make a bar piyadama, you should make a shahakol? That's a big shaila. As I fracked the bir halacha over there, and the bir halacha says the aside that since over there it has to undergo a cooking process. So therefore, says the bir halacha, that's called panim chadashis balakan. The stage that you have it in right now, says the bir halacha, is, let's say, this raw food that no one eats like that. And in order to bring it to its edibility, you have to do something to it, a ma'aseh b'dei yadam, to bring it to its ability to eat. You have to cook it. So that means it's a different object. It's a totally different thing. So the thing over here that you're eating wasn't the nata daita da'achi. It wasn't the cooked product. That's a whole different object. That's a panim chadashis balakan. So therefore, in that, you don't make a bright pre-8. When you cook it, machenkin, until you cook it, it's going to be a shackle. It's a totally different product. Machenkin, when it comes to baiser, baiser is not a totally different product. Baiser is a product that if it ripened, it would get there on its own. Elamai, you're eating it in the stage beforehand. On that, says the bir halacha, so that's not called a different product. And therefore, says the bir halacha, the baiser will be a bari priyadama, and therefore, it's chalik from Sif Yud Beis. Look, now, just mamish a mention. I mentioned it, so I'll just a thought. Somebody asked me a very difficult shaila. He was a survivor. I'm just saying this as an agov, and then the Mitzvah Shem will go back to Tarzik. But he was a survivor, and now he's in the Olam Ha'emes. But he was a survivor, and he had a anhaga that he would every year on a certain day that he deemed he would eat raw potatoes, peels, raw potatoes, just to remember and to have a kares atoiv to the Heiluka Bashefer for the nace that he had, that he was saved from the Nazis in Machshemam. So he would eat specifically foods that he was fed by the Nazis in Machshemam, raw potatoes and raw peels and whatnot. He asked me a shaila. One time that day fell out on Shabbos. So he asked me, a raw potatoes muksa, is he going to be allowed to do it on Shabbos? I had a different shaila, perhaps it's going to bring him to sadness on shaila. But derech hagav, you could think to yourself, what bracha would he make when he would eat those potatoes? I mean, if he could pater it, he could pater it. But what bracha would he make? A potato is something that is certainly not making an adama, because you don't eat it in its stage of raw. But I think it's even more than that. I saw that Rabbi Badner in his Sefer on Brachos in page 420, he seems to say that Rechaim Pinchas Scheinberg, the great Goyin from Dairor, from Mantersdorf, he seemed to say that potatoes is something that when it's raw, it's totally inedible, and you don't make any bracha on it, which is a chiddush. If that's the case, then you have to declare what exactly. This is a very sensitive shaila, but what did they do in the camps? Mistama, they made brachas. I would imagine they made brachas. I don't know. Perhaps they made a bari priyadama because that was the derech of that whole entire leda. Somebody has to know. I don't know. I certainly didn't want to ask him. But Al-Kapanim does the dalacha. So that Rabbi Isai is a sugya baiser. As we move along, now you go to the sugya of regular fruits. So now regular fruits, that's a three-way machlekes over here. At what point? Hold on one moment. At what point?
What was the psak to the survivor?
What was the psak? Sorry?
To the survivor.
I told him that he can't do it on Shabbos because I think it's going to bring him to tzara, even though it brings him to Aidot Hashem Yisparach. But Kanira eating it brings him back to that makom. You can imagine on an emotional level, it brings a person back there also.
And if it will be on Tuesday, what bracha would he make on the raw
what would be
potatoes?
the psak on the bracha?
Right.
He never asked me the shah on the bracha. I was thinking it myself. and now he's in the oil of Mammoth. He's not asking. But I don't know. Rabbi Badner brings from Chaim Pinchas that you don't make any bracha on a potato. I got at the time, I tasted a raw potato just to see how gefährlich it is. I didn't find it to be totally inedible. Maybe our potatoes are different. I don't know. Does anybody concur with me? I thought it just didn't taste good.
So why do we make a bracha on maror, on horseradish? And what if you grate?
Maror,
what if you
maror,
grate
that's the derech of how you eat maror. Nobody cooks maror. The fact that it's charif and strong is not the pshat that it's inedible. I happen to like maror. But like that, I don't know. I was surprised when I saw Chaim Pinchas said that you don't make any bracha on a raw potato. It's not the most negaya shaila, but yeah, I was a bit surprised.
Well, with Negaya and Chanukah, we came up with a Negaya because if you grate, people make latkes with grated potatoes. So somebody grated the potatoes and now it's grated. Is that a nishtani lemoyusa that it will take it into a bracha already because of that?
And the taste itself is gefährlich or not gefährlich?
I don't know. You could eat it. You could eat a grated. The problem with potato is you can't bite into it. You can't get anywhere. But once you grate
I don't know.
it,
I'll just read you here. The Mishabur, you've gotten your test. He says, if aim mevarchen of klal, that's going on what? And so you've gotten your test is going on ad she'ein roi lachila fila idiat chach as aim mevarchen klal because it's like a eitz ba'alma la fila miskin al yedei or gam kein aim mevarchen lav rak shakol. That's if you heat it up and whatever. I mean, I don't know. Is it aim mevarchen of klal is it so bitter as a raw potato? Like you said yourself, once you grate it, it's edible. It's not later. I'm not sure. Not sure. Man, the truth is, though, it is a sugya later on, which Amir Hashem we're going to learn. And it's a sugya of Sifyud Beis, which Amir Hashem will learn. I'll tell you where we'll learn it. Amir Hashem. It's a sugya that comes up on Daf Lamed Ches. So Amir Hashem, we'll get there. Now, the next shaila is the Shulchan Aruch tells us what's the bracha on fruit in general. What's the starting point of the bracha? In other words, at what point could you make on it a bari priyates? Is it called that you have a fruit? The Shulchan Aruch shita is once it starts growing, basically, and make a bari priyates. The Ramah shita, second shita, Yeshayim al Charuvim, Ad Shiyira, he basically goes with the mahalich of Ksitzas Ha'ilim by Shvius. I'm sure the Oilim saw the sugya and understands the sugya. That's how Shulchan Aruch goes. And the Goyin brings a third sheet that it's totally into Oinus Maisris. The Oinus Maisris is a later shlav. And that's a three-way machlekes. The Biur Halacha says you can't be moiche if somebody does like the Shulchan Aruch. In other words, if somebody already at such an early stage, let's say you have a tiny little apple and you want to make a bracha on a tiny mini apple, assuming it's edible, so you'd make on it a bari priya eitz. Biur Halacha says that l'maisa, if somebody's going to ask, you might say within a dhamma, so why not do like the Vilna Gaon? The Gaon holds that it's not yet considered a priya eitz until it hits the Oinus Maisris, which is a later shlav. And why not do that? Since you yaitse with a dhamma, you should do like that. Now, usually it's not negeya because the fruit stores don't sell these things. So, I don't think anybody here ever bought a mini apple. Maybe if somebody here has a farm that I don't know about. So, but these things aren't negeya. So where maybe could it be negeya is, I know that now again, different countries, different methodology, but I know that in Arteinu HaKadoshah, they pickle everything in Arteinu HaKadoshah, right? But one of the things that they pickle are these tomatoes, and they pickle them when they're green. The green tomatoes themselves are already a certain sour taste. And when they pickle them, it has a sharpness. The Orletzian discusses this in Chelik Beis, in Perek Yudalid, in Oistes or Tes. The Orletzian says shtikl chiddush. In other words, you have to understand that everything's going to always be nachas chadarga. Berega that you're not making on it a bari priya eitz because it's not ready yet, you'll make it on a bari priya dama. Let's say I'll have a vegetable that is not quite ready yet. So instead of making a bari priya dama, I'll nachas chadarga and I'll make a shahakol. So he declares on those pickled tomatoes, do you make on them a bari priya dama or do you make a shahakol? And the truth is that I think most people would assume you make a bari priya dama, but it could be they just don't know the sugya. Now, if you would ask most people what bracha they'll make a bari priyadama. The shaila is if that's correct. So the obvious way to set it up is the Shulchan Aruch. It's going to be Mishiyat Tziu. Once already this tomato is come out, already you make on it a bari priyadama. And therefore, the sheet of the Shulchan Aruch, it should seem that you should make on it a bari priyadama. Masha came, the Gross says it's totally in the Oinus Meisers. Now, before I go weiter, I see there's of the 50 participants over here. Does anybody know the Oinus Meisers on a tomato? So most of us would say no, but it happens to be on this one. We're very wealthy people because on this one we have a Rambam which is explicit what it is. The Rambam in Hilchos Meiser says that the Oinus Meisers of the fruit, his lashon is Oinus Meisers has whatever fruit, kol peiros shedarkam lahadim, any fruit or vegetable for that matter, which its derech is to turn red. The oinus meisers of them is when they turn red. So Mamela, Dr. Rabbi Tzin Abba Shoel, a very simple thing. A tomato, what's the oinus meisers of a tomato? Hooray, until the point that it turns red, it's not yet there. It has to turn red. So when it's green, it's not oinus meisers. According to the Vilna Gaon, what bracha do you make on a fruit, on a vegetable that hasn't yet reached oinus meisers? You go down one madrega. Oh, as Memela Dr. Benzina Abba Shoel, what bracha do you make on a pickled green tomato? You're going to make on it a shahakol nebedvaroi, because you go down one madrega. Einachanami, the Shulchan Aruch, you're going to make an adama. And Einachanami, the Mishnah Berurah says you can't be moicha if somebody does like the Shulchan Aruch, but if somebody wants to know what's the chatchila, Mishnah Berurah says why not do something that'll make everybody happy, and therefore you should make a shahakol. The only thing is that when I learned this sugya many years ago and I saw this, I took notice that you see this at Kedushim, at least in Eretz Yisrael, you'll see that people on these pickled tomatoes, they'll make a shahakol, they'll make an adama, they'll make an adama. Okay, it could be they just don't know the shaila. But Lamaisa, after looking into it, Rabbi Isai, I found two reasons why you would make on them a bari priyadama, and it seems to be, I heard from Rav Efrati Zalzang that was the sheet of Mamish of Rav Eliashiv. That on these pickled tomatoes you make an adama. One is a metzias, and the second is also a metzias. One is that it seems to be that these pickled tomatoes are planted in specific groups, specific crops, specifically the green ones that they plant to get them out at the color green, at that shlav, which means that we're getting into the sugya of nata adaikta dahachi. They're miyuid for this purpose. Once something is miyuid and specified for that purpose, right, so then already that's a whole different game. That the derech is to plant them al manas to get to this point of where you're going to pickle them before they turn red. That's a different story. That means I planted it for that. So that's the pre-hadam. I planted it for that. That's one svar. Another svar is it seems to be in the Metzias that these tomatoes, be'etzim, if you would leave them out, they would turn green. It seems that they would turn red, excuse me. And it seems if you look in the Rambam, it could be you can learn what the Rambam means is that if you have a fruit, you have a fruit, etc., that if you would have left it on, then it would have turned red, and you plucked it early, and now it can't turn red. That's when he says that the oinus meisers is mishiadimu. In other words, in our case over here, this tomato, when I plucked it, besides if you would leave it, it would still turn red. So it could be that's called already, he says Rabbi Yashiv, it's right to become red. And therefore already at that point, it's oinus meisers. What the Rambam was maybe talking about when he says Misha Adimu is he means if you're going to pluck it at an earlier stage that it cannot become red because you plucked it at too early a stage, so then that's before the oinus meisers. That is a chiddush. But Lemaisa, when you think about it, according to the Shulchan Aruch, Benkach you make an adama. And now we have two svaras of why even the Gra would agree to make an adama. So therefore, it's enough at least that if you see minig oilim, you see people that they're making an adama on it. So then I'm not sure if you have to be moicha. That's Rabbi Isai Siv Beis. That's Rabbi Isai Siv Beis. That's Siv Beis. Any shilas before I go by to the Siv Gemara, Rabbi Isai? Now,
well, there's shilas. What's that? Quite around. On what? On these pickled green tomatoes? The other would like to know what's the maskana on the pickled green tomatoes.
The maskana on the pickled green tomatoes is that the minhag olam is to make adama. I personally, a little bit scared, so I pater it. I pater it with something else. I'll have a shackle, I'll have a dama, ich have moira. But if I had no choice and all I had in front of me was a pickled green tomato, the Meister of Vrati told me, or the Yashiv said the psak is taka to make an adama, so I would make an adama. As far as she should probably make a shahakal because that was the psak of Ben Sina B'Shal.
Okay.
I mean, no matter what, the Shulchan Aruch holds adama you'd say that the bracha is adama. And it's only a shaila. The HaRav says ain't limchais if someone wants to do like Shulchan Aruch, and there's lots as far as to say that in this case even the Gra would agree. So the Mela, I'm also. I think the Rama also could potentially agree over here. It's only the Goin's Chumrah. So if they fight, Mistama there's a minhag olam on this. So Mela Kamachan a Bari Pri Adam. Pits. Let's get to the pits. So over here we have a sugya Shulchan Aruch Siv Gimel Garine Paris. It seems to be if they're sweet
Could you
pits.
put the mechaber? Sorry, could you put the mechaber on what page in the book is it?
It seems to be sweet pits. You make on them good tasting pits. You make Bar Pri Eitz. Obviously, if you have a pit that's coming from a vegetable, it seems to be the bracha be a Bar Pri Adama, and it seems to be it gets the same bracha as the fruit itself, as the vegetable itself. If it's bitter, so then you don't make any bracha. But if you fixed it up, you would make on the shahak as a state. Okay.
238. 238.
But it seems to be that if it's nechol lashon over here, the shatzat chak, the lashon is that if they're bitter and then you're not mevarich on them. But let's say it would be even nechol b'shatzat chak. Let's say it's something that's technically it's edible. It's a pit that you could taka eat it. I want to read you from the lashon just one moment. It seems to be that the Mishabura seems to say over here that technically it should come out, that if it's so bitter it's not edible, so then in a chanami you don't make any bracha. If you miss a day, or then in a chanami you make a shackle. But if I've got panim, these pits are edible, it seems to be you make on them. He says lav davka the mishabura el kol shachek nana. As long as it's edible, you make on it a bright pre-eitz. The mishabura brings over here that many achreinim seem to argue on this. Many achreinim, and just to quote you, as far as the achreinim are concerned, there's a Gana Melech that's Slach, that's the night of Yudah, the Panim Iris, the Goin, in many places, Rabbi Kiva Eger, and that's the Mishabru over here in Sivkat and Chav Gimel, and Shartzi and Chav Beis, our Chashulchan says, Toiv Levarech Adama, right? And that's Maisa. Many hold over here that no, this isn't the actual Pri, it's a tuffle to the Pri. Avad the Pri is the Iker, the actual Pri that comes from the tree. And this is just more of a tuffle. Kain the svaras that we know by Evyonis, Kain the svaras that we know by Alim and Evyonis by Slav. And therefore the Psak of the Mishabrua seems to be that you're supposed to make on this a very Pri Adama. Now it's very interesting is that the Shulchan Aruch seems to learn it's the Pri itself. In other words, the Shulchan Aruch is learning that the apple, we'll see in a minute which fruit, but it seems to be it's the Pri and the pit, and they all go together, and that's one big Pri. And we don't look at it like separate parts, like Slav. That's the sheet of the Shulchan Aruch. And the Mishabrua brings that Achreinim are not like that. They bring down that Nishtazeh. They bring down Nishtazeh. And again, the same thing, if it would be a vegetable, so then the Shulchan Aruch Shita would be on the pit, you'd make a Bari Pri Adama. And the Shita of all these Achreinim would be on a vegetable, the seeds of a vegetable, which we'll see in a moment, is going to be Nachas Chadarga. And you're going to make on it a shahakal. That's the seeming thing. It's very interesting, is that the Derech Chaim says that you should know, let's say B'di Eved, the Derech Chaim's the Nesivus. Let's say B'di Eved, you made a Boirei Pri Eitz on a pit. Klaimar, you're going not like the Shita, not like the Shita of the Shulchan Aruch. You're going with the Shita that on a pit, it's Nachat Chadarga, and you have to go down to an Adama. Let's say you made a Bari Pri Eitz. So Derech Chaim says that B'di Eved you Yotzei, because Seif, it's something that comes from a fruit. It comes from a tree. So it's still passes to say Bari Pri Eitz. I think I have a raya from the Aruch HaShulchan not like that. Because the Aruch HaShulchan says over here, when it comes to this machlokes, the Aruch HaShulchan says, what should a person do? As a machlokes, the Shulchan Aruch on a pit says, you make a borei priya eitz. The other Achrayim say you should make a borei priya dama. So it says you should make a borei priya dama. You know why? Because no matter what, if you make a borei priya dama, you're yotzei. So therefore, make a borei priya dama. The Derech Chaim, the Mishabura that the Mishabura brings is not like that. The Mishabura brings a Derech Chaim that says that bidi eved, if you made an eitz, then everyone's masking that it works bidi eved. So what's the Aruch HaShulchan saying? The Aruch HaShulchan is mashma that if I would make a borei priya eitz, according to all these Achrayim, it doesn't work even bidi eved. So therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan seems to have learned not like the Derech Chaim. According to Derech Chaim, if I make a borei priya eitz, I'm yotzei anyways, even according to those that say it's an adama. The Aruch HaShulchan says, no, make an adama. Why? Because that way you're yotzei according to everyone. What do you mean? I'm yotzei according to everyone no matter what. Once I make a borei priya eitz, I'm also yotzei b'diavad. So it sounds like from the Aruch HaShulchan that he held that according to the shita that you're supposed to make an adama, you're not yotzei b'diavad if you make a borei priya eitz. So therefore, halacha l'maisa on a seed, we'll see in a minute which ones, more in a theoretical sense, on a seed from a fruit, a person would make a borei pri hadama. Why? Because the Aruch HaShulchan says that's what you have to do, and even the Mishabura is clear that that's a shita that is a respectable shita. Okay.
A seed in a pit is synonymous.
Come again?
A seed in a pit is the same thing. A pit, just a bigger seed.
So sunflower seeds, for example, are going to be a borei pri hadama if this. We'll see in a minute. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. The sunflower seeds is going to be a borei pri hadama because it's not a dait tahachi, but theoretically, yeah. The Ksais HaShulchan in Mem Tes Yud Zayin, he says that maybe the Gans Nidin is only on a fruit that the seeds are eaten together with the fruit. But he says, but let's say you have a fruit that you never eat the seeds. He says, so then there's no not dait tahachi. It's not something that anybody eats. So he says, therefore, that definitely doesn't have a shame pri. He says that he's misupik about that. The Aruch HaShulchan says, I'm not misupik. The Aruch HaShulchan's not here. That's why people miss this. The Aruch HaShulchan didn't see Kotin Chav Gimel. And the Aruch HaShulchan says that it's borrowed to him, nearly borrowed, that which we say you make a borei priya eitz on pits is only if it's fruit. And he says, like Tainim, like Reminim, that you eat together with the pits. But he says apples and pears. He says no one eats it. And therefore, he says it's not a borei priya eitz. That's according to everybody. It's not a borei priya eitz. It's going to be a borei priya dama. You're going to have a naches char darga. Kain nearly ikar ladina. That kind. Therefore, our sugya is not talking about apple seeds. Apple seeds, if a person's going to eat them, okay, generally, we'll see in a minute, it'll be toughful. But if he would eat them, he would not make a borei priya eitz. Because since it's not something that normally he eats together with the apple, something that normally you eat together with the fruit. So even when you're not eating it with the fruit, you'll make a borei priya eitz, lefi al kapanim the Shulchan Aruch. But something that you never eat together with the fruit, you just don't eat it. So then when you're going to eat it, so then you're not going to make on it says the Aruch HaShulchan a borei priya eitz. It's going to nachas chadarga, and it's going to be a borei priya dama. That's the sugya. Kafi, what we said so far, not so nagay. but the shayla says pumpkin seeds and watermelon seeds and all these things, right? Sacharit should be tali in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, the pumpkin seeds are an adama because it's the vegetable alone. Very good. Watermelon seeds, does it the vegetable? The Achrayim that the Mishabura brings, the Goyin, Reb Kiva, that it's nachas chadarga, nachas chadarga. So then what bracha would you make? You make a shahakal. And what are we going to say lamaisa? We're going to say lamaisa, shahakal, because the Aruch HaShulchan said do something that'll make everybody happy. Why get involved in the shayla? Just one moment. Excuse me. Why not do something that make everybody happy? The only thing is, and this is a great riddle, Rabbi Yisai, for your family on Shabbos. How do you have a food, the exact same food, planted in the, same city, same country, whatever, looks the same, tastes the same, smells the same, everything. And on one of these foods, you're going to make an adama, and the other food, you're going to make a shakal. The kids are going to start saying all types of, newfangled fake meat and this and that and all types of chemically altered foods and whatever. The answer is that, and this is a great side, that what happens today, that the pumpkin seeds are made specifically, they plant pumpkins adaita just for the seeds. What was the reason why the Mishabura brought Achrayim that argue on the Shulchan Aruch? The Shulchan Aruch holds even if it's not the ikar of the pumpkin is the pumpkin. The seeds are there also. That's enough, says the Shulchan Aruch. Mishabura brought down Cholkim. Why? Because it's not the daita dahachi. Once it's not the daita dahachi, you go down a madrega, and now it's no longer an adam, but now it's a shahakal. But what happens if I find you today that the pumpkins that they're making, they're planting them a daita dahachi for the seeds alone, and they plant special crop of pumpkins which are made just for these seeds. It's mamashanata daita dahachi. So then even the cholkim on the Shulchan Aruch are going to agree. You make a bar piyadama. So come dice. I have a pumpkin in my house, and I take out the seeds, and I say, why should I go and spend money on the pumpkin seeds in the shop? I'll make my own. So then you're going to, on that, make a shahakal. The pumpkin seeds that you bought from the shop, they're made a daita dahachi. On them, you're going to make an adama. Same food, looks the same, tastes the same. One of them you get adama, one you're going to make a shahakal. As I come to, same thing with the watermelon seeds. So come to the if it's planted a daita dahachi, so then you're going to make the bracha of a bari adama. It's not the daita dahachi, and that seems to be that's the mitzias today. Like Rada, I looked into sunflower seeds. It seems to be the Erletzian talks about this in Beis Yudalid. It seems to be that the sunflower, the ikar reason why they're planting the bistaka for the oil, but the ikar pre, says the Orletzian, the ikar edible pre is the seed. And therefore, that's also called the nata daita dahachi. And therefore, on the sunflower seeds of Ada, you're going to make a bari pri adama. I know, Dylan remembers when I was growing up, they had these sesame candies. They were with honey. I don't know who remembers them. In my time, that's what they gave out in shul. It's a different door, but upon him, those things, again, the sesame is clearly made a daita dahachi, so it's a bari pri adama. It's put together with honey and all types of good, but that's all tuffle to the sesame, and therefore for shteitzach on these sesame candies, you're going to make on them a bari pri hadama. Agav, that's the Kaf HaChaim speaks it out in the first, this case, in Simon Tadi Test, and the Pri Megadim speaks it out. This is l'ch'oira. Adkan. Now, is there a question on that before I continue?
Any questions? Rabbi says, so everybody was eating papitas on the street in Yerushalayim, that's a bari pri adama. Lamaisa,
unless you make your own papitas.
Okay, and all seeds are daita dahachi today.
Today in the shops, any seed is a daita dahachi.
Okay.
I know that there was a vegetable store in Yerushalayim when I was a bacher that people used to bring. I mean, today I don't think you have this, but people used to, after Shabbos, they would bring him all the seeds, and he would wash them, and he would roast them, and he would sell them. That
also
was going to be a shackle.
No, that's also daita dahachi. Yeah. What? Why? It's a daita dahachi. He was their first daita dahachi. No, I wasn't
totally in the planting.
I wasn't planted for that reason.
It's not totally in Dudu or Nimrod, the vegetable man. It's totally in the planting.
What about the peach pit?
The peach pit, I mean, it's mar and inedible. You mean when you crack it open, the peach inside?
Yeah, we crack it open.
So let me see. I'm going to try and get there, Bez Hashem. That's really more Sif Hay, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if we can get there. Bez Hashem. Okay, now Rabbi say, there's a very interesting Mishnah Brew over here, which is something that you have to realize. It's something that'll be negay later on. There's a Bir Halacha. One moment. Very important Bir Halacha. 1 second. Excuse me. Mishnah Brew. Sorry, Mishnah Brew.
Fine. You have a book? Which ice?
Which Sif Cotton.
Gimel Garini Paris.
Where's the one where he says Iker v'tafel? That's the one I want to show you. It says if you're eating it agov, it's always going to be a tafel. Is that the Bir Halacha?
We saw that. It's in the Mishnah Berurah. We saw that in the Mishnah Berurah. Yeah.
Not the Bir Halacha?
It's not in Chav Gimel.
Let's see. Chav Gimel. Yeah, thank you.
The end of Chav Gimel.
Im oichel agarin, achar she'oichel apri. That was a test. I was just seeing if you guys know where it is. Im oichel agarin, Let's say I eat the pit after I eat the pri. Mistaber, according to everyone, it's putter with bari pri eitz. Why? Because it's ikar. Mishum sheberach la pri. Mishum deve tafel la pri. The Dalam find this to be mechudish. Shartzian tivkat nechav gimel. Haino, even according to the Rashba, it's not a pri. Akapanim ledidei misrabi garin. He brings a raya. Mishabur doesn't just say this stam. Mishabur doesn't say this stam. But if the Mishnah Berurah would tell me that it's tafel because I'm not eating it with any thought or whatever, I hear. Mishnah Berurah knows there's a very big chiddush here. But say, what's the regular ikar tafel that we're used to? You take a cracker, you dip it in the hummus, you make a mezainis and pater everything. Okay, you take cereal and milk, you make the bracha on the cereal, and it paters the milk. The milk is not the ikar. The milk is tafel. Unless you're drinking a whole separate amount of milk or whatever, but it's all there to enhance. It's there to enhance. And that's, Hashem, we'll learn the big sugya of ikar v'tafel. Really, we're going to start it at least in the sense of mezainis next time. Bli neder. But al kapanim, when you deal with regular ikar v'tafel, the regular sugya of ikar v'tafel is a sugya of something that is enhancing the other. It's true, we find other types of ikar v'tafel. We find bread is the ikar of the suda. We find wine is the ikar type of a drink. But the regular conventional ikar v'tafel is that I'm eating one thing and the other thing is enhancing. I have a cracker and I put cream on it, cream cheese or whatever. That's the regular case of ikar v'tafel. Okay, Rabbi say over here, I'm eating a fruit and I'm eating a pit. The pit is not doing anything for the fruit. What's the shaykh's ikar v'tafel? So and the Mishnah Berurah knows that he's saying a chiddush. Mishnah Berurah knows he's saying a chiddush over here. Normally you have ketchup and fries. So then I hear, what's the ikar tachlis over here, right? But over here, the Shtei Chemed also discusses this. But the Chayra, what's the shaykhis of an ikar v'tafel? And the Shartzian knows that. That's why he speaks out of chiddush. He says, he found a raya from Orla. What's his raya from Orla? He has a raya that midisrabi garin, and I find that seeds have a din of Orla. Why? Because it says es atafel lepiriyai, so that's also included in Orla. So you see it as a shame of a fruit. Mamela, alabikol makam, we make the bracha on the ikra and point to the tafel. And I found also in the Shtei Chemed. The Beit says this is meraps in igra. Why do I care that you found in Orla that it has on it a shame of a fruit? What does that have to do with ikra v'tafel? What's the shaykhis? Because it's Orla. It has a shame fruit. I'm asking. It has a shame of fruit in Hilchos Orla. You can't get enough from it. So it has a shame fruit. And that shame fruit, we said, is not adaita, so therefore it's adama. But it's enough of a shame fruit that I could call it the dinim of ikar v'tafel, and I could say the ikar point of the tafel. Does everyone understand my shaila? It's tamua. See from here, a yisaid, which we're going to learn in Mitzvah Hashem, many times when we talk about ikar v'tafel, the conventional thought process of ikar v'tafel is that ikar v'tafel, the way it works is that the tafel is enhancing the ikar or something like that. You see that there's a whole sugya of ikar v'tafel k'may by yayin. Yayin, you make a bracha on the wine, and you don't make a bracha on any of the other drinks. Why? This wine has nothing to do with the water. And the water is not helping the wine. We're not talking about a chaser that the water is taking down the alcohol, the wine or whatever. So why is that? Like there's a big side. I'll give you an example. You buy your wife a diamond ring, a diamond pendant. And it comes in a beautiful, you buy her brand new, beautiful, expensive watch. Like, a really expensive watch for your wife, a Casio with a calculator, very geschmack, very fancy. Okay. And it comes in a very hush of a box also, not stop. And then she wants to thank you. She's going to thank you for the box. I mean, it is a hush of a box. She's going to thank you for the box. Avadana. Because it's batal, it's bichlal masayim. I'm thanking you for the watch. So then, of course, I'm thanking you for the watch. I'm not going to thank you also for the wrapping. You're thanking Hashem Yisparach for the wine. That's the most chush of a drink. It's a billig abyssal. It's almost like it's pasnished almost to thank for other drinks. I'm thanking for the ikar drink. So it's almost pasnished to thank for what's in the Geya to give Hashem thanks when you already thanked for the ikar drink. the ikr drink. That's the yisoid in ikr v'tafel. And Bamis, we're going to see that's really how it works in all ikr v'tafel. That's how it works on the cracker and the cheese, on the cream, the cream cheese or whatever. Because what's in the geya? Over here, the ikr food that you're eating, the ikr satiating is this. So it's not the geya to go and thank Hashem for that. For that, it's very good what the Mishnah is saying over here. The Eilik of Hashem for a Pashaf and a Pri with the seeds. It's true the seeds have on it the shame of a Pri. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a Bari Pri Adam on it and thank Hashem Yisparach. You're thanking Hashem on the Ikr Pri. And this is all a part of the Pri, because we see by Orla it's a part of the Pri. So the Norbesai, it's nechlal in it. Once I thanked for the choshev chelik of the Pri, it's not negayah to thank Hashem Yisbarach. It's unnecessary to thank Hashem Yisbarach for the not as choshev chelik of the Pri. It's a chiddush. It's something that we're going to come back to, Mitzvah Hashem, and hopefully Alavai will, as we build it, we'll understand it more and more. That's Adkan, Steve Gimel. Steve Dalid, we learned last time.
What's that? So the Rav's abiding by a kasha on the Mishnah Brura? You're staying by a kasha, why it's ikr v'tafel? Or
no, it is it's not. It's taka called the regular. That's how ikr v'tafel works. The Mishnah Brura is being mechadish to you that the way ikr v'tafel works is not that the tafel is coming to help out the ikr or something like that. No, making a bracha on the ikr makes it that I already gave the ikr praise. Memela, anything that'll be nechlal in the shame pri, it's pasnished. I'm going to thank Hashem for a shvacha pri. I thanked him already for a major pri. So again, that it's bracha on its own would get only an adama, but it has a shame pri. Once it has a shame pri, I thanked Hashem for the ikr pri. So it's not necessary to thank him for a shvacha pri, a less chashuv pri. That's how ikr v'tafel works. Is that clear? I should clarify.
Yes, no, it's clear. I think it's clear. Yes.
I'll say one sentence. If I thanked Hashem for the apple, well, let's say the apple we said maybe we weren't really talking about. But if I thank Hashem for the ikar pri, and now I'm going to throw in the seeds and whatever, even an apple, and I just eat the whole apple straight through. I saw once a bacher do this, go straight through. So then, what's in the geya? I'm thanking Hashem for this chefza. So I'm going to thank now separately for the dot of this chefza. It's almost like leitzanis. That's the vort of ikar v'tafel. That's how ikar v'tafel works always.
Then later, so that's what he's saying. That's what he's talking about.
Is that clear? Sagam, the seeds have nothing to do with the apple in as much as the food. But mitzad, the praise on this product is almost pasnish. Clear?
Yes, clear.
Now, okay. I want to just mention one nakuda, another riddle, once we're on the topic. We spoke about Sivdal last week, Azuke Mazik, and once I'm on the subject, I'll just mention another riddle. How do you have a case? Exact same drink. Now you have a food. Exact same drink. One of them, you're going to make on a Bari Priya 8s, and the exact same drink, and you're going to make it on a shackle. So what's the answer? The answer is in a nigrin, and it depends. If he's doing it for refuah purposes, so then says the Shulchan Aruch over here that im shatzai murav and silka adarabba, it's not moil, it's moil for his throat. So if chayshish legrainai, so then the shemen is the ikar, you make a Bari Priya 8s. The next day he has leftover a nigrin in the fridge. He's feeling all better. What bracha does he make? He's not doing it for refuah. So now what bracha does he make? On that he has to make now a shahakal. Which is a shakal. That's Siv Dalet. Now, I'm going to skip for a moment Siv Hey, because I want to mention just the orange peels and whatnot. I know the oilam looked into it. Let's just mamish bekitzer. Let's see what we can accomplish over here with slaf. So this, you all saw, there's the leaves, there's the berries, the cherries, the whole business over here. And the maisa, it seems that the avyoinim are, the berries are by Priyadama, the Avyanim are by Priyates. The Mishnah Brura explains the Alim, they don't have that same level chashivas, and the cherries and all these things, etc. The peels, etc. The Shartzian explains over here that it's not nota daita dachi, right? They know they're going to get berries. So if you do make a bracha, you make a bari Priyadama, but it goes down a madrega. It goes down a madrega. The Birkei Yosef, the Chidos says today, he says nobody eats these berries. So it's not even a nata daita dehachi. And therefore he says it'll be a shahakal. Now, but Maimar Muzgar, Rav Moshe Zechron Levrach, and the Tshuva and the Tes, he argues, and he says nata daita dehachi is only if I don't want it because it, let's say, ruins the ikar pri. He says today, punkt, they don't eat it. Now, I'm not going to go into it. We'll see soon. The ikar psak over here, most achrayim take on like the chidah, which is very simple, that it all depends on what's the nata adaita dahachi. Okay, lamaisa. What does this mean in practical? Because I don't think anybody ever here even saw a tzlaf tree. The Birkas Abaye says, well, apples and pears and all these things. He said the peels of them is clearly a daita dahachi, because we eat the whole entire fruit, and therefore if a person eats just the peel of the apple, he can't wait, and he eats just the peel of the apple or the peel of a pear or something like that. So then today it's edible, and and the only nidin was when it came to, let's say, these kafrisin, devyayinim, these things, that the peel, they would peel it. It would fall off, they would peel it, but an apple, a pear, and all these things is for sure a bari priya eitz, because that's eaten together with the fruit. When there was a peel in those days that wasn't eaten together with the fruit, so then it was nachas chadarga, because you see, it wasn't the tachlis of the fruit. They ate the fruit and they peeled it, and if they did eat it, they didn't eat it. That's a different story. Mashayker, if you have an apple and a pear and all these things that you eat together, the cucumber peel or whatever, you eat it together, then it'll get the bracha of the actual fruit or vegetable, whatever that bracha is, even if you're eating it separately. That's, I think, muskim and pashit. The big
and
shaila
also,
is,
the Matthias is that it's very hard to get a peel on its own without any part of the pre. Just Matthias wise.
yeah, but that might have been lulei de svara. That might have been tuffle.
It would have been a
It
tuffle.
might not have been a rive. Lulei de svara.
Why? You're eating the pre itself. You're eating a piece of the pre itself. I'm saying attached.
No, but I'm
to
saying
the-
you don't even have to. Let's say
I know.
your wife is making apple kugel, so they peel the things, and all the peels are sitting there, and she's not letting you
Always
take
ha-
any of those apples. She needs
It
a
always
pick.
has apple on it. That's what I'm saying. Matthias wise, it's impossible to cut it so thinly.
I understand, but then if without this svara, the amount of apple on it would have maybe been buttled to the peel. Without
It would
this
be
svara,
buttoned to the peel.
yeah, because it wouldn't be the rive.
Okay. The element is
Now-
the healthiest part is the peel. Do
Yeah.
They sell apple peels separately?
No,
Not-
but
not-
my wife, when she's making an apple kugel or something like that, so there's tons of peels. So if you like those peels, in Machabari Priyates, no shaila. Now, what about orange peels? Now, while I was growing up, I don't know, some of the chevra here will remember this. You guys remember marmalade?
Yes, we still have.
I mean,
it.
I remember it I remember it from Pesach, and I remember having the extra jars way after Pesach because nobody ate it on Pesach, but that's a different story. Marmalade.
Your mother made it for Pesach?
My Bubba's a of Levracha.
Anybody made it for Pesach? Anybody made jam for you made jam for Pesach?
Sorry?
No, I'm asking them if they made jam for Pesach. Okay, weiter.
Listen, the Hungarians, they made everything. So the Maisa, the shot is, what bracha do you make on an orange peel? If you make a bracha on an orange peel. So it's very interesting. L'chayra, it should be the same story as Evyoinim, as the tzlaf. In other words, it's a peel. I guess if they candy it, then they make it edible with sugar or whatever, etc. It should be some form of nata daita dachi. It's obviously not the ikar purpose. The ikar purpose, of course, is the orange, and the peel would go down a level, and we would assume that it would be a bari priyadama. The Mishabur on this brings a three-way machlekes. Mishabur brings that the shita of the Taz, it's in Reish Dalet Sivkot and Tezvav, near a klipas marantzin, right? Shemerach chinoisam b'dvash, you make adama, and that makes sense. Let's see what we just said, because it went down one madrega, and therefore you make on a bari priyadama. There's the shita of the Taz and the shita of the Baal Tanya, the grass. The Mogen Avram, he says no. In Sivkot Yud Zayin by us, the Mogen Avram explains that it's a bari priya eitz. He says, what's the pshat? He says, when you had of Yoinim, when you had the case of the Tzlaf, so over there was talking about that it was taka, they actually, mamish fell off. So when it ripened, it never stayed on. So therefore, it was Nachas Madrega, the peels. He says, but Masha'en came our peels on the orange, they stay on the whole entire time. If they stay on the whole entire time and people eat them, if it's the normal derech, so then what bracha you make? A bari pri eitz. Then the Mishnah Berurah brings down that like we explained, you mentioned from the excuse me, from the Chidah.
Which Sivkat is it again, so we can put it up?
Where's the Mishnah Berurah? Sivkat and Lamites.
Lamites, okay.
Lamites. Mishnah Berurah brings down the El Yerabah, the Pri Megadim, the Derech Chaim. They all held Shahakol because they go with the Mahalach that it's definitely only a miyat. Most people are not that daita dahachi, and therefore you can't compare it to the case of Avyonim, which was a quasi not that daita dahachi. Mishnah Berurah says yesh teis, you should make a Shahakol. El Yerabah says El HaRav mashlicha, the right people don't use them, so therefore it's a Shahakol never dvari.
Upper right in Mishnah Berurah, Ala Kafrisen. Yeah. And
the Mishnah Berurah brings, look, the dieved, if you make a bari pri eitz or a bari pri adama, you are yotzei. Okay. But I guess, this would not be the thing that the person would use for a suffix brachos. Right? Now, Lemaisa, it's speit. I see that the time is basically up. Halacha Lemaisa, Mistama the minig is definitely on these things to probably just make a shahakal. I wanted to leave off with one shaila.
The processed orange peels, which they add honey or whatever else they add to it, sugar or whatever it is, the rough sack is the shackle. That's
shackle. That's the psak. I think that's also the makubal de psak by. I think that's lemaisa. Even though the Aruch HaShulchan
it looks pretty equal here on the Chayim list. It looks equal here. The list of the Chayim or Chalik this look pretty equal. I don't, brought in the Sharatziyah.
It's equal, but the Mishnah Berurah is the Maisa Mishnah Berurah says you make a shahakal, and it's at least a suffix.
Midin Sveika Adina?
Come again?
Midin Sveika Adina?
What's an afkamina? I mean, I wouldn't use it as my.
I'm asking, it's shahakal.
No, I'll tell you the nafkamina. Nafkamina is that let's say a person has a suffix brachos. Don't go and take a chocolate orange peel, a sugared orange peel, and use it for your suffix brachos of a shahakal. But if a person has to make on it, then should make a shahakal.
That was my question. The shahakal is not midin shahakal; it's midin sveika adina on which bracha to make.
100%.
Because sometimes it's a shahakal, not midin sveika adina, but here it's sveika adina.
No, here's midin sveika adina. Mishnah Berurah seems to say it's out that. The Aruch HaShulchan came out that you make a bari pri eitz, but you take a look in the Aruch HaShulchan and try to understand what he's saying. Ayin Sham, I didn't. There's a whole mitzias over there from Italian oranges, and I don't know what. So, I don't know. Maybe a Haisa Chabadska, maybe he makes an Adama, because the Baal Tanya paskin like that, and it says a Shulchan paskin like that. But the Ma'aseh, the Mesivis, and the Pri Megadim, and the Mishnah Berurah, the El Yerabah, they all go. The Berkas Bias, they all go that you make a shakal like the Pri Megadim. So I don't know if the list is really so equal. The Aruch HaShulchan is tamua to understand the Metzias, and it's basically the Mishnah Berurah, the Derech Chaim, the Pri Megadim, the El Yerabah. That's a very heavy list that you make a shackle. It's true that Mishnah Berurah is saying that's up.
Right around those sugared. This is not the peels. This goes back. I don't know what it is. Those sugared slices. I'm talking about. They have when we were kids. I'm sure they still have it around. It starts all the way back to Barton's. Those slices of pre. And then they put sugar over it, they sell it. And you know what I'm talking about?
But that was the marmalade. That wasn't the orange peels?
No, that was the thing itself. No, that was.
Oh, if it's the actual thing itself.
Sugared slices of pre. Barton's used to make that. I'm sure they still sell it. It's horribly.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. They're like, I know what you're talking about.
They serve a Shalom Zacha still. Great. Yeah. What is that? That's a shackle?
Those must not be That's the actual pre-lane.
It's not a peel. It's the fruit, no? It's the fruit itself.
Yeah. I'm saying that's probably a bari pri eitz.
Even though it's sugarized and all the.
Yeah, but the ikar that we saw by sesame that the Pri Megadim says it's obviously bottled to the pre, like the sesame candies.
That stuff is the eights.
Yeah, I gotta think you're right. Now that I'm thinking back, I think the kids all made on them a shakal. Now that I think back, but it's a bari pri eitz.
Question.
Oh, he says it's all sugar. Those actually candy-shaped fruit, totally all sugar. Okay, like that. I don't know. We're being told over here they're all sugar, but I don't know if that's true.
What's candied fruit? What's the mitzvah of candied fruit? That's sugar. That's fruit. And sugar is poured over it. Lamaisa, no.
Come again?
A candied fruit, isn't that a fruit that sugar is?
No. He's talking about something else. The ones that are made by Sunkist, that's totally sugar, 100%. No. Rabbi Gottesman is talking about something else. I know what Rabbi Gottesman is talking about. Rabbi Gottesman is talking about the ones that you'd also buy in the store. They weren't in a bag. I know what Rabbi Gottesman is talking about.
They were in a box, and they had half moon slices.
Yeah. No, the half moon. He's right. Those ones are for sure all sugar. No. But they sold these when you would go to the stores that you buy an Erev Shabbos, that you buy the pickles, you buy all the chocolate and the junk and all the candy.
It has a little bit of it. The half moon slices. They're
half
pattern
things. He's right. That's pure sugar.
They had a slice. They tell you it's a thing. They tell you it's a I don't know what a cherry or something like that.
Yeah. That's an anicle of No, that's all sugar.
So what are those? Sugar? That's a shackle or that's a
those ones are all sugar. I was talking about they had those jellified, candified. I think I don't remember.
Candified. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's not Rabbi Guys. You're talking about the half moons. Those ones are pure sugar. I'm getting nostalgic.
Yeah, those green and yellow garbage. Yeah, that's clear. That's pure sugar, but it has the taste of fruit.
Yeah, that's what I told my mother. Also,
it would be like cherry flavored water. There's no shiloh that it should be a cherry. I mean, it's Pashas water, right?
Yeah. I just want to mention one last thing, that the klipa of Esroigim, the Ben Ish Chai says is a shahakol, but all the Paiskim argue, the Taz, the Panmiras, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Esroig Metugan, you make a ber eitz, because it's not that daita the hachi to be eating it like that. Now, not if you smear the jelly on a sandwich, it'll be bottled or whatever. But if you're eating the nata daita the hachi, the fruit of the esrog is that eitza pir yoshava. That's the white part. Which the only way to eat is when it's candified, when they jelly it or whatever they do to it, and then it's taka bari eitz, and that's the psak of the Kafachayim. That's the psak of
somebody
the
Somebody asked us in Shemitah, and Esrog of Eretz Yisrael, there you have to eat it. So maybe what's the story with Merkachat of Esrogim?
So it's a bari eitz. You taka see the bits, and it's not the daita the hachi, so it's a bari eitz. Even though the Ben Ish Chai is not like that, I think even the Svardish Paiskim hold it's a bari eitz, because the Kafachayim says it's a bari eitz, others say it's a bari eitz.
So Lamai said marmalade that people still buy. I have it in my refrigerator.
Marmalade, if you eat it plain, you probably make on a shahakal.
Oh, as opposed to the tough with the bread. But if you eat it plain.
Yeah, but I think anyways, there's a lot of jelly in the marmalade that marmalade's made of all just peels?
No, marmalade, obviously sugar is put into it, obviously, but it's not.
No, but I'm saying, but the whole meat is just peels?
Anybody know how marmalade is made, or by say? Anybody?
It's not going to be. It's
what do you do with an esrog? What's that? When you make the esrog, this is the only one everybody makes. So you just toss the whole esrog in, right? Not
basically, yeah. The white part. The white part. You throw in the white part.
Not the peel, even. But what is marmalade? Marmalade is made out of peels. I think marmalade is made out of. I don't know what's marmalade made out of.
No, marmalade is made out of peels.
It is.
I think so. I think it's mostly peels.
You buy in the store. What's it made? Made out of peels? Is made out of a bus or something. And the esrog, you know, it's made out of the bus or the esrog plus the peel. So does that make it an eitz from kol alma?
The esrog is an eitz because it's not a daiti, because that is the fruit of the esrog. That's what these places can say.
No matter how much sugar you put into it, whatever it is, it stays up.
That's the psak of all the paiskim. The Yavit says that it becomes edible al yedei, all the sugar and all that stuff. All the cooking sugar and all that business.
Takes away the mariris of it, you mean? Takes away
basically,
the mariris.
Yeah. That everyone says. The Yavitz and the Taz and the Palmyra, the Kitzur. The Kamarna says that. Even the Svardish Paiskim, they're all not like the Ben Ish Chai.
And a sugared baked apple?
So a sugar baked apple, that's going to be an eitz, because it's something that's nechal bein cooked, bein. I remember that. I used to get them at the the candied apples. Those are an eitz, because you can. They're eaten bein raw, bein chai, bein mivoshel, and they're all the same.
I'll leave it a kol almi. Even the Ben Ish Chai would have made that.
Yeah. Bevada.
Anything else, Rabbi Sai, before we let the Rav go? Anything else Rav would like to be meisiv?
Yeah, I want to just meisiv one question the Olam could think about it. I know next time I'm starting from we're starting from Kol Sheyesh Bo Mechamesh Mini Dagan.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to leave you with a shaila. You can all think about it. Ask the other Talmidei Chachamim. It's something that I would have ma'aricht on. I'm just going to leave you with the shaila. The Mishnah Berurah, you all know there's a big machlekes about sugar. You saw some shitas say eitz, some shitas say adama, some shitas shahakol. We pass in shahakol. Everyone knows this. I think they say that some Sefer from the age of when he knew there was a shaila, he never had candy. From the age of 5 or 4 or whatever, he never had candy his whole life. I have a shaila. The Mishnah Berurah in many places, whenever he wants to get you out of a suffix bracha, he tells you use sugar. Kuf samach sivkat and samach. Talks about cake and coffee. Kuf ayin adalid sivkat and lamites. Mishnah Berurah everywhere. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Mem Gimel Zayin, everywhere. All the mamish, everywhere you go. So the shaila is, why would I do that? I have a suffix bracha. The Mishnah Berurah has tons of cases where you have a suffix bracha. It says take a little piece of sugar and pat yourself. I say, what am I doing? I'm in the middle of a suffix. Sugar itself, we make a shackle on. It's true, we make a shackle on sugar. But why would I put myself into a situation that I should make a shackle on sugar, which itself is a suffix, to patter up something else? So what are you going to say? Because the Mishnah Berurah was trying to find an eitz of something that was, commonly found or whatever, and he doesn't want to take chicken or meat so that you become fleishiks. So why didn't the Mishnah Berurah just say salt? In Simon Reish Dalet, it says it's a Mefurish Mishnah. You make a bracha on
sugar
salt.
It makes it into a svex faker, right? No?
Come again?
Makes it into a svex faker.
But why would I put myself into that situation?
Because you have a suffix on the sugar itself and the suffix on the underlying thing.
Right.
And you have two svekers.
Yeah, okay, so you're going to be yotzei b'diavad with shakol no matter what. But why would a person do this when he has something like salt, which is no shaila in the world? If you make a bracha on salt, it's for sure a shakol, according to all the poskim in the world. So why did Mishnah Berurah say this?
Agav, is the Mishnah Berurah sugar our sugar? He had domino sugar, the same as we do?
So that's a nidin. That's a little bit of a nidin, but certainly, in the end of the day, it's whatever the Mishnah Berurah was talking about, even if ours is maybe a little bit more pashut, but whatever the Mishnah Berurah was talking about, he was willing to say you could make that as your pointer for the suffix brachos. Why? Why didn't he say salt?
Maybe the salt was harder crystals. Maybe it was thicker and harder.
In Hilchos Shabbos, it doesn't sound like that. For sure not. You look in Simon Shin Yud Ches, Sif Yud over there. It's not, for sure not like that. They had regular salt. They would break it up. There's shilas of toichin of salt and Shin Chaf Aleph.
Well, we were struggling. What else could the Mishnah Berurah have used? Mushrooms?
That's interesting. Rabbi Black says because you're going to feel more grateful for a sugar than salt. It's a gewaldige chiddush. He wants to say a chiddush that it's a weistach ois that the Mishnah Berurah wanted that when you're going to make the bracha, you're going to enjoy it more. And the male, you'll enjoy it more when you have a piece of sugar than salt. Rada, me personally, I like salt more, but okay. That's, I guess, maybe most people aren't like me. I don't know.
So it's a very good shaila. The Rabbi going to give us the answer you wanted to think about.
So Rabbi Black wants to say a teretz. He just said a teretz because it's when you're going to do it and you're going to make the bracha, we want you to make the bracha in an oifen that's enjoyable. It's a chiddush. I want them to think about it. Ask the other Talmidei Chachamim. On the Mitzvah Hashem next week, we'll go to Mezainis. That's Hashem. Big sugya.
Okay, everybody.